At 2:17 on a Wednesday night in the Gulf of Oman, the AN/SPY-1DV radar aboard USS Thomas Hudner, DDG-116, tracks 4 depressed trajectory contacts descending from the north-northwest. The watch team first reads them as a familiar problem set, a fast ballistic presentation with enough altitude and enough separation to fit the textbook for a manageable intercept. They are right about the speed. They are completely wrong about the purpose. The 4 tracks arrive on a bearing of 336 degrees at 312 kilometers, each contact separated by 7.4 kilometers, each one dropping through 41,000 meters with a cross-range wobble that should not exist on a conventional medium-range ballistic profile. The radar picture looks clean, too clean. No drone clutter, no small boat swarm, no supporting air picture. That is exactly what makes Lieutenant Junior Grade Evan Mercer, the Night Watch air controller, look twice at the console and call for raw track history instead of the filtered display. The ship does not face a raid yet. The ship faces a keyhole, 2 hours, 17 minutes, and 21 seconds. The track manager on Aegis Baseline 9 classifies the inbound weapons as probable Iranian Fatah. 1 maneuvering re-entry vehicles, each tied to a solid fuel booster with a published range of 1,400 kilometers and a terminal speed that Iranian state media advertises at Mach 13 to Mach 15, or 4,420 to 5,100 meters per second, depending on altitude and heat load. US modeling strips away the propaganda and still leaves a serious number, Mach 11.2 in the terminal basket, 3,810 meters per second, fast enough to compress every human decision on the plot. Each missile carries an estimated 350-kilogram maneuvering warhead, uses inertial guidance corrected by satellite updates in the mid-course phase, then begins terminal weaving with thrust vector and control surface authority that forces the intercept computer to keep rebuilding a future that keeps changing. Public estimates put the unit cost near $500,000, which means Tehran can trade 1 missile for the chance to burn through several $1 million in defensive inventory every time an American commander chooses certainty over risk. U.S. intelligence tags the current deployable stock at 64 completed rounds across 3 missile groups, enough to make the weapon tactically rare, but strategically usable. The real problem sits inside the geometry. The Fatah does not need to be impossible to hit. It only needs to force long-range interceptors to launch early, launch often, and launch in pairs. The predicted impact basket centers 5,800 meters short of USS Gerald R. Ford CVN-78, which tells the system the missiles might aim at the carrier, might aim at the screen, or might do something worse. And wait, the fleet has 96 seconds to solve a puzzle designed to eat missiles first and ships second. 2 hours, 17 minutes, and 46 seconds. Commander Michael Reeve, Tactical Action Officer in Combat Information Center aboard USS Thomas Hudner, steps to the center console and takes the air defense picture. With one glance, he has 14 Standard Missile, 6 Block IA interceptors allocated in the air defense doctrine set for his ship, 24 evolved Sea Sparrow missile block 2 rounds quad-packed for terminal work, 1 Mk-45 Mod 4 5-inch gun forward, Phalanx close-in weapon system aft, and no margin for theater-level guesswork. He orders doctrine-free. 4. Salvo size 2 per inbound, and Aegis generates the first 4 intercept solutions in 3.6 seconds. The first pair of Standard Missile, 6 rounds, leaves the forward Mk-41 vertical launching system at 2 hours, 17 minutes, and 52 seconds. The second pair follows at 2 hours, 17 minutes, and 55 seconds. 4 white plumes punch into the dark and then disappear from the bridge cameras as the missiles climb into data link control. Combat reports time to go, range gates, seeker activation, expected merge. At 2 hours, 18 minutes, and 21 seconds, the first intercept occurs 71 kilometers from the force. 1 Fatah track disappears. At 2 hours, 18 minutes, and 24 seconds, the second merge fails cleanly. The inbound vehicle jinks 19 degrees right in the final 2.3 seconds, and the interceptor passes behind it by 14 meters. At 2 hours, 18 minutes, and 28 seconds, the third and fourth Standard Missile, 6 missiles split the difference. 1 proximity burst shreds a maneuvering body into 3 major radar fragments. The last surviving Fatah sheds speed, throws chaff, and drops lower than the model predicted. Reeve watches the board recalculate. 4 launched, 2 kills confirmed, 1 degraded, 1 still fully lethal. The defense worked. It also just burned 28% of his long-range magazine in 36 seconds, 2 hours, 18 minutes, and 33 seconds. The sea picture changes all at once, and /SPS-73 surface search picks up 12 low-signature contacts skimming south at 46 knots from the Iranian coast. The cooperative engagement capability feed from an E-2D. Advanced Hawkeye 140 kilometers to the southwest, and 16 more tracks at 120 meters altitude. Subsonic. Radar cross-sections consistent with Shahed. 238 jet-powered one-way attack drones. They do not threaten the carrier by themselves. They threaten the arithmetic. Reeve sees the shape before anyone says it aloud. The 4 hypersonic missiles were the hammer everyone would watch. This is the hand reaching for the magazine latch. At 2 hours, 18 minutes, and 41 seconds, Doctrine Logic begins assigning Standard Missile 6 and Evolved Sea Sparrow missile shots against the mixed raid because USS Gerald R. Ford sits inside a defended asset ring with 0 tolerance for leakers, and the system does exactly what it was built to do. It protects the carrier. It spends everything. Reeve counts down in his head, while the display counts down in green. 12 drone intercept solutions, 8 surface contact threat evaluations, 4 more engagements queued on the surviving degraded hypersonic body because its terminal basket still overlaps the carrier's projected track. At 2 hours, 19 minutes, and 8 seconds, the critical second arrives. Thomas Hudner now holds 6 Standard Missile, 6 rounds, and 18 Evolved Sea Sparrow missile rounds against 29 active threats. One line on the plot says it all. 24 defensive shots remain against 29 inbound problems, and 11 of those problems can maneuver after seeker handoff. Reeve does not panic. He presses his thumb so hard into the edge of the console that the nail goes white, and he says, in a voice flat enough to cut metal, mark every track by cost, not by speed. 2 hours, 19 minutes, and 16 seconds. He requests modified engagement authority at once. Hold remaining Standard Missile, 6 missiles for supersonic and ballistic class targets only, push drones and surface contacts down to gun, electronic attack, and terminal defense layers, and release USS Delbert D. Black, DDG-119, to create a crossfire geometry instead of parallel shots. The request goes up to the Air and Missile Defense Commander embarked with the strike group, then to the Carrier Battle Watch, then hangs in the space where doctrine, politics, and fear turn seconds into dead air. The authorization delay lasts 31 seconds. That is enough to decide the engagement. Aegis continues firing under existing carrier protection parameters because the machine does not wait for human pride to sort itself out. 2 more Standard Missile, 6 rounds launch at 2 hours, 19 minutes, and 19 seconds against the damaged Fatah and 1 drone tagged as Raid Commander. 4 Evolved Sea Sparrow missile rounds leave their cells between 2 hours, 19 minutes, and 24 seconds, and 2 hours, 19 minutes, and 38 seconds. The drone cluster begins to fragment, but not fast enough. Delbert D. Black reports concurrent launches from its own 96-cell battery and then calls reduced inventory. At 2 hours, 19 minutes, and 47 seconds, Reeve gets the answer he asked for. Approved. Shift doctrine now. He looks up at the launcher status repeater 1 beat too late. At 2 hours, 20 minutes, and 11 seconds, Thomas Hudner's Ready Air Defense magazine hits 0. 2 hours, 20 minutes, and 12 seconds. The real strike begins 1 second later. Coastal radar on bearing 041 flares bright for 2.6 seconds, then vanishes, and 6 sea-skimming Cater anti-ship cruise missiles break over the horizon at 14 meters altitude with a closure speed of 302 meters per second. They launch from 38 nautical miles away, likely from 3 Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy missile boats, masked behind commercial traffic until the moment the American screen empties its cells. The flight path explains the trap in plain language. The hypersonic missiles forced prestige shots. The drones and surface clutter forced automatic follow-up. The cruise missiles arrive only after the American destroyer can no longer answer with interceptors. The nearest ship is USS Gerald R. Ford. Time to impact is 78 seconds. Interceptors remaining, 0. Reeve watches the line of red carrots settle into a discipline. Net attack spread, 4 aimed at the carrier's projected turn point, and 2 biased toward Thomas Hudner, to pin the screen in place. Number 1 in combat says the word trap because everyone can see it. Tehran spent cheap weapons to unlock a premium shot on the most politically valuable ship in the water. That is not tactical noise. That is a strategy. 2 hours, 20 minutes, and 24 seconds. Chief Warrant Officer 3 Daniel Park, Gun Weapons Officer and former Naval Surface Warfare Center Dahlgren Test Detachment Specialist for Variable Time Anti-Air Fusing, steps off the aft console and says he can build a flak corridor with the 5-inch gun if Reeve will give him the radar. Park has spent 11 years turning naval gunnery tables into solutions for targets that fly too low, too fast, and too irregular for peacetime doctrine writers to love. He does not ask for permission twice. He asks for geometry. Reeve gives it to him. Park orders 3 Mk-53 Nulka active missile decoys launched to starboard on bearings 039, 043, and 047 degrees, with programmed hover offsets at 800, 1,200, and 1,650 meters from the ship, and emitter gain step to mimic carrier scale radar return instead of destroyer signature. He couples that deception with an /SLQ 3-2V6 electronic warfare modulation to brighten the false target line and commands the Mk-45 Mod 4 5-inch gun into anti-air variable time mode. The gun loads 20 high-explosive variable time rounds. Fuse burst altitude sets at 18 meters. Firing interval sets at 0.82 seconds. Traverse rate holds 30 degrees right of bow. The purpose is brutally simple. Pull the missiles off the carrier, stack them into a narrower lane, and then fill that lane with steel fragments moving faster than the men who packed them can think. No manual in the rack calls for this exact sequence. Every system on the ship already knows how to do its piece. Park simply decides to make them do it together. 2 hours, 20 minutes, and 51 seconds. Reeve transmits execute at exactly 2 hours, 20 minutes, and 51 seconds. The first Nulka leaves its canister at 2 hours, 20 minutes, and 53 seconds. The second launches at 2 hours, 20 minutes, and 55 seconds. The third clears the rail at 2 hours, 20 minutes, and 57 seconds, and the electronic warfare suite immediately pumps false carrier strength energy into the starboard decoy line. At 2 hours, 21 minutes, and 8 seconds, the leading 2 Quater missiles bend 11 degrees. Right, that is the first contact that matters. At 2 hours, 21 minutes, and 11 seconds, all 6 cruise missiles shift off their original aim points and compress toward the false corridor, because the decoys now look bigger, cleaner, and closer than a turning carrier screened by sea clutter and jamming noise. Park opens fire at 2 hours, 21 minutes, and 13 seconds. The Mk-45 slams round after round into the dark, each shell timed to burst across a moving wall 2,400 meters ahead of the bow. The first airburst punches 3 orange discs across the waterline. The second catches a missile in the nose and snaps it sideways into the sea. Third and fourth bursts shred another missile into burning fragments that skip across the surface like welding sparks. Phalanx picks up the survivors at 2 hours, 21 minutes, and 21 seconds and adds a stream of 20mm tungsten. Then the reversal hits. 2 missiles, seekers corrupted by the decoy geometry and datalink noise, overshoot the false carrier line, reacquire the brightest return on their original bearing, and dive back toward the Iranian missile boats that launched them. At 2 hours, 21 minutes, and 34 seconds, one impacts the lead boat amidships. At 2 hours, 21 minutes, and 38 seconds, the second detonates near a trailing launcher craft and sets off secondary fuel and munitions fires. Park's last programmed 5-inch airburst goes off at 2 hours, 21 minutes, and 41 seconds. One final cruise missile breaks apart under phalanx 640 meters from the ship. Over the water, black smoke rises in 3 columns. White spray hangs in the moonlight, and then the whole sea goes suddenly still in the kind of silence only violence can make. 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 3 seconds. Infrared from a FAL deck helicopter confirms the damage on bearing 041. 2 Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy missile boats burn bow to stern. A third lies dead in the water, rolling 18 degrees to port with fire at the launch rails. The surviving launch platform turns north and disappears into coastal clutter without another shot. USS Gerald R. Ford remains undamaged. USS Thomas Hudner reports no structural hits, 0 casualties, and heat scoring only from its own forward gun blast and decoy exhaust. Commander Michael Reeve types the engagement log himself because he knows exactly what history will try to misunderstand about this night. He enters it in the terse language ships use when men do not have time for speeches. Threat defeated. Own force damage nil. Casualty count 0. Magazine air defense 0. Counterattack result 2 FACM destroyed. 1 FACM mission kill. Then he leans back from the console and looks at the empty launcher status, because the lesson does not live in the victory line. It lives in the line above it. That is how a president loses against Iran even when the ship survives the night. Not when the first missile gets through, but when every tactical save costs more than the next trap.